Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies and we speak with the guys who run these companies. I've got Andrew Radonjic here of Venture Minerals Limited. ASX code is VMS, and currently their market cap is 44 million. Andrew is remote today, so we're on Zoom. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks for giving us time.
It's good to be back. It's been a while, Noel.
Look, Andrew, obviously the talk of VMS is recently you just announced rare earths discovery in Mount Lindsay and Golden Grove North. So I'll let you tell us all about it.
Yeah, look, in the last couple of months, we've got within our portfolio of projects, we've managed to come across not one, not two, but three rare earth prospects, and it's as we always say, you choose good land packages, good highly prospective land packages in jurisdictions. They will yield you results, and sometimes a little bit like our Southwest project where we joint venture with Chalice. We went in there looking for lithium. Unfortunately, we didn't find any. Would have been great back in 2017, and we come across a VMS target, and that's volcanic massive sulfides, copper, lead, zinc, silver, gold. And then all of a sudden, we end up with a Dulama lookalike. So you tend to get these little surprises from time to time, and we've been very fortunate in getting, two at Mount Lindsay, two rare earth opportunities there, and one at Golden Grove North.
One of the things that I obviously, when we first spoke a couple of years ago now with Venture, I always liked the fact that you got a widespread of projects. And one of the learnings, I guess, is that you in mineral expression is you tend to find metals in the same geology. What kind of learnings have you guys had since the discovery of these projects? Like, obviously, it's new to you guys. So what is the learnings from obviously Mount Lindsay stuff and the Golden Grove? I would expect some differences. Maybe you can just share your thoughts on that.
Well, look, I'll go back to the story, I suppose, of the first one at the Reward prospect at Mount Lindsay. We were drilling along the Renison mine sequence. We had one rig, it's been teaming along there for a while, and finally we have a second rig. It's taken 6 months to get basically a drilling crew together. The rig was there, but when you get the geologists sort of rip the blinkers off a little bit, they're having a look at other opportunities. And what we found is that the geologists would find some minerals and get the Niton or the Olympus portable XRF machine and zap it on that machine. You got about 4 to 14 rare earths, and there's this strange fluorescent mineral that attracted them to analyze that. And what you found is that we got this highly anomalous results and coincidental with some high phosphorus values. And so I thought, okay, that's interesting. Let's have a look to see if we got any in our database of results. Do we have any more high phos zones? And we found that at Reward. So you go back and when you store these packets, pulp packets, and you move a few times, or you're Tasmania obviously rains a bit, and we do have our little creatures who like to sort of eat on brown paper packets, and all of a sudden you find how good your storage system is. And anyway, we managed in our first quick look to get about 39 samples, and what we found is we had sitting in the hanging wall in the clay rich zones around the Reward tin zones. We had quite highly anomalous, plus 1,000 ppm total rare earth value oxide. So it's been a bit of a learning experience for us in terms of knowing what geology we were sort of perspective for Renaissance style high grade tin, sort of rich sort of dolomite zones, and finding these the clay zones being enriched in rare earths. It's something that I suppose we really haven't focused on. So trying to find out what the source is our current challenge by just getting more data, and it's open in all directions. So with the entire sequence is prospective for rare earths is a question we need to answer.
Andrew, there's a lot of companies that's talking rare earths at the moment. As we all know, that it's sort of the flavour of the month. Um, how do you want investors to see your story? How is venture different in that sense? How do you stand out from the pack?
But look, our very first discovery was, sitting in a hanging wall of our tin zones, which is, that's like you were going to be potentially mining that anyway. And now you've all of a sudden your waste rock has got rare earths in it. Obviously, we need to do the test with it and make sure it's recovered, but it's clay hosted, so it's a great start. So it's adding value to an existing, when you've got nearly 1% tin sitting, within arm's length of your rare earth, then all of a sudden you're getting value for your waste rock. So that's quintessentially the difference. And all three of our prospects are all a little bit different, and certainly we need to work out the the value of each of them. But the Golden Grove North is an outstanding number, but the target's looks reasonably well constrained. But we need to get a hole in there and see what it could or couldn't be. We just can't work out the geology at this very moment. Is it going to be more monazite or carbonatite related? Is it that might be the case in the Golden Grove North, and that last but not least, our Cruncher target, we're drilling with the co-funded hole in Tasmanian government out 1.3 kilometres west in the Una Formation, which is a different rock suite again. And the west coast of Tasmania is very poorly explored. So if all of a sudden that formation there has got potential for rare earths, we've got to. Now, when you analyse soils, you get lanthanum and cerium, the lighter of the rare earths. Essentially, it's part of the package deal when you assay anyway. And if they start getting anomalous, then you go back and maybe assay for rare earths. That's usually what the case was. And also coincidental with that is was a boron anomaly, which is boron metasamatism goes hand in hand with sort of skarn type mineralization. So, in that case, the target we've got a 10 rare earth target. So do we have the same as we have a reward, but in a parallel sequence? So that's 1.2 kilometers long, that anomaly. We've got more information at that anomaly because there's no alluvial tin field disrupting the soil sampling quality. So it's look, very early days. Clay hosted is important. The four main key rare earths for magnets, your terbium, over $300,000 a ton US, dysprosium, neodymium, dysprosium. It's sort of these praseodymium, these are the four. You don't try and recover all 14 or 15 of them because some of them are worth just a few bucks a ton. You want to recover the main ones, and that's what we want to focus on. And the clays generally have better values of the heavies, the permanent magnet rare earths, the four key ones, and that's what we're sort of focused on. But that's I won't discount the Vulcan Golden Grove North target at this stage because that's got some sensational results. So obviously, sometimes a grade, as we know, is king. So if you're getting plus 1%, instead of 1,000 ppm, you're getting 10,000 ppm. Then that comes with its own benefits. So look, it's it's not as if we went out there and bought a rare earth project. We've just happened to go back, look at our data sets. Good example, and reassess. Golden Grove North. We had some high values. Rare earths a few years ago was is nowhere near as popular as it is now. And as a consequence, you start reassessing some of these things on the back of that. And this application we put in with Cruncher to the Mineral Resources Tasmania for the EDGI funding, the co-funding that we managed to get that, and they approved that, and there's $50,000 going towards that first drill hole, which we just started a couple of days ago. So yeah, a huge variety, huge opportunity, and again, it's just down to great, ground selection by the team.
Yeah, I think in some ways, when you guys announced the first one at Mount Lindsay, my first thought was, well, if the tin tungsten was sort of marginal with the pricing that's out there in the market today, when you add a credit like what rare earths could give, that this could turn the whole game completely over and make it more doable, I guess is the word to use. But I guess that's time to come. But I guess I see the clay rare earths like alluvial gold or alluvial something, because at the end of the day you've got to drill through the same thing anyway. In a lot of these projects, you've got to drill through you drill through the clays and you get to where you want to go, and that's how a lot of these discoveries were made. But your Golden Grove one is interesting because the potential the price is a carbonatite with the geology there. Do you see this kind of thing? Because I mean, geology has a funny way of making something out of nothing, right? It's a case of drilling holes, as we all know. But do you see that kind of geology setting maybe potentially good for a carbonatite over there, or are we potentially seeing something in Tasmania?
Um, I don't think Tasmania got carbonatites, but again, it's sort of it's lack of data as usual. I mean, the carbonatites, like for example, at Golden Grove North, we've got a magnetite or a BIF in a banded iron formation with magnetite in it. So you look at a mag and it's just swamped what a BIF. So you couldn't see a carbonatite even if you wanted to. It may be deeper down and maybe needs some closer space of gravity to help you. But again, it's a matter of it's probably get some more information, drill a hole. That's essentially what is probably the best strategy there going forward. We've done as much as we can on the surface and start getting some idea about the geology, what it is, and is there enough alkaline rich units down there? Is it a breccia zone? Is it something? Is it hydrothermal coming from a source deeper down? These are the sort of things we can only speculate from surface samples and results at this stage, but start to get some holes into it and looking, interpreting textures and doing some further analysis and drill core will help us. And Tasmania, like I said before, Tasmania is again terrain is challenging, in more ways than one, and prospectivity is then still high. It's very high because it's still relatively unexplored. Again, not like going to the back of Kalgoorlie and I'll get driving onto a gravel track and pop the drill rig up and start drilling the hole. It's been well done, that area, because the access is easy, the low hanging fruit, so to speak. But there's rare earths in Tasmania with the Australian bauxite guys finding something on them, virtually sitting adjacent to their bauxite rich zone. So these opportunities do exist on the clay hosted side of things, and so it's early days, but yeah, we will learn. We are all learning how potentially how not rare these rare earths can be.
um, I mean, obviously, the geopolitical issues has spurred this on to some degree. I think there's no doubt about that. 2-3 years ago, you couldn't get people to say those three letters and be smiling. But how do you see that moving forward? I mean, it is going to be important because that is the rare earth market, you want to say. So how do you see that market going forward now that you are, almost knee deep in it?
Yeah, look, the geopolitical scene in the conflict between China and the US is well versed. And the battle for critical minerals and the getting being independent of the minerals that China controls, like tungsten we've spoken about before. Rare earths very much is classified in the same way, and China is trying to, I suppose, control that market by going downstream further. So you don't buy rare earths, you buy a finished product. And the West is, if you like, is not positioned in terms of technology to produce permanent magnets. So it needs to catch up to achieve that, and demand is going to be like maybe potentially two separate markets. So where the market sort of worked its way out is a little bit crystal ball gazing to determine where that may land. And the question is, I suppose, is where do these rare earths, what is the flood of these supply coming in? Who out of all these explorers or hopefuls are going to be able to produce something which is, at a price, today's price might be fine, but can it produce it at tomorrow's price? And that's what I like about our reward prospect, where you've got tin sitting adjacent to the rare earth, so it's not dependent on that, and that provides, if all of a sudden the price is higher than the rare earths, do we still dig it out? Well, we're digging it out anyway, so the answer is yes. So those companies will have that opportunity. Do we do these massive hundreds of millions of tons going 800 ppm? Will that be economic if the prices are halved? That's the question. And the question is, what these plants and how much they cost to build, needs to be determined. So there's a bit of a race to get there, and not everyone's going to obviously get past the finishing line. So you've got to have a point in the difference, either high grade or it's a co-product, byproduct scenario. I think that's pretty important. Yeah, I suppose we will continue to learn. It's exciting at the moment, and some companies are going to come out with some pretty special results. It's a matter of turning that into an economic resource at future prices with all those capex obviously implications for the bottom line.
Yeah, I think as I said before, in the first time you put out your discovery rares in Mount Lindsay, I think the race is probably easiest won by those who turn it into a product, a byproduct, or something where you work together with credits. I think you win things easier when you have many components to make the number that you need, right? So rather than if one commodity can do it, then 3 commodities can get it going. But look, talking about Mount Lindsay and stuff like that, what's your other projects like Kulin and Thor? Can you give us an update on that?
Well, look, just touching on Mount Lindsay, and I touched on tungsten previously. So since last month, we went to an annual event, tungsten conference event, which was held in Brussels. Which is, if you want to find out about tungsten, you need to go to these events, and it's not the data is not very public. It's quite a small industry. I think just over 100,000 tons of tungsten consumed per annum. Like I said before, China's about 80% of that. So a couple of interesting findings from that. Noel is to share is that the world needs about a 3% year-on-year growth for the next 10 years, and we're going to need another 30,000 tons of tungsten by the end of in 10 years' time from some source somewhere. And again, referencing that geopolitical scenario we spoke about before, and certainly to remind your listeners and viewers there is that the US had in the 1980s, before the Berlin Wall came down, had a strategic stockpile of tungsten. Tungsten is used armor plating, armor piercing. We now know that all the depleted uranium that was used in those shells is now being removed because of the impact it has on personnel handling those weapons, and as a consequence, more tungsten is required. The US is supplying armaments to Ukraine, and the Ukraine war, obviously the Russians are using up, they already produced a fair bit of tungsten, where they get their additional tungsten from. So this sort of tension, this Cold War that's reappeared, all of a sudden the US and everyone's going to want to make sure they've got their stockpiles, and they're going to need more tungsten. So the demand from defense, aerospace, mining, construction is going to feed into that increasing demand over the next decade. The other aspect is obviously electric vehicles use less tungsten. Tungsten is as heavy as gold, so there's a couple of reasons why. But you lose a couple of percent there, you're gaining something like 8 or 9% in the aerospace and in defence and mining construction side of things each. So that's why it's going up so dramatically. And then, lo and behold, a near niobium tungsten oxide battery, faster charging, higher density as you expect. looks like the bee's knees, Noel. But all these new batteries that do come out in the vanadium, etc. But will it take off? I don't know. But that was certainly something I didn't know about until I went to Tungsten Conference, and we met all the the Canon metals, the GDPs, the Wolfram, all the usual suspects. That you have in the tungsten sector. There was no Chinese groups there for obvious reasons with COVID, but it was good to be talking to some old faces, familiar faces from last time we were there 8 years ago. But they were very, very keen to listen to the update that Venture has with this Mount Lindsay project. So we're looking to get an initial study out on the underground towards the end of this year. So expect some news flow to come out shortly on that. The other projects, just briefly, now is the season, as the weather's improved down in WA. Finally, it is kind of getting out of winter eventually, but
not winter, not summer weather today, mate.
Yes, I keep hearing the fire keeps getting turned on every few days. But look, we expect Chalice to be on the ground shortly as conditions improved. You normally would. Now's the season to be getting on the ground, doing your soils, doing your EM, ground EM. So we just want to get those couple of targets up to speed. There's a whole range of new areas we need to open up, generate more targets. But hopefully we're drilling those 2 targets that Chalice identified, and we reported those in early August or late July earlier this year as part of the first stage B earnings. So they've got $2.5 million to spend over the next 2 years, which is will be by end of July 2024. So we'll see the first phase of that about to commence. So again, expect some news flow from there. The results from the Kulin Airborne EM survey. Kulin's another very interesting block of land, and as always, interesting areas geologically speaking. Have maybe several more than just a nickel copper PGE prospectivity we have there in terms of layered intrusive mafic ultramafic complexes. There may be other goodies in there, such as the gold we intersected. The gold's not obviously the flavour of the month at the moment, but Kulin's a very exciting opportunity. So some nice EM targets supported by some strong nickel copper PGE type soils would certainly encourage us to drill there next year. So there's plenty of activity there for shareholders going forward.
That whole concept of us finding more rare earths and finding out that rare earths are not very rare. A lot of guys finding lithium and finding more pegmatites. And the whole area around that Julimar, Kulin area, that zone, and the line going down south to your Thor project. And I mean, it seems to me that we're moving into an era of mineral exploration for products or in areas that we've never really thought of. I mean, you and I have been around for a long time, and we took decades of doing the same thing, being in the same area. But do you feel like we're moving into a time now where it's actually new areas? The Julimars have popped up over the last 18 months or 12 months. Kulin, things like that. Do you think, and we're finding rare earths, people are chasing rare earths, they're all over the wheat belt now, a lot of companies going through there. Do you think that's a phase that we're moving into, that we're in store for new discoveries in new areas?
Well, look, as I've probably mentioned this in the past, if you get your ground selection right, I'll talk about WA briefly, but you got, just referencing what you just said, the Archean or the Yilgarn Craton goes from the Darling Range just outside of Perth, the edge of Perth, all the way past Kalgoorlie, and it's a massive, block of land, and there's great opportunities. Most people just found it too hard, west of the Southern Cross Belt because of the metamorphic terrain. Grade was much higher, hard to recognise. People had theories, and some of those theories are now decades old, and the discovery like Julimar kind of is proving that wrong. There are projects out there, and that's gone through improved geophysics. There's no doubt about that. Soil, the analysis of different partial leaches, different techniques, and people all of a sudden looking in a much broader sense and analysing the data, which for many years was buried doing nothing. You'd be focused on gold, and or some geologists decided to do a whole rock suite of elements, and then all of a sudden you got a whole data set, but people would look at maybe just a few percent or 10% of it and ignore the rest, and that's why people are going back and reviewing that data and coming up with some new targets. And there's been a heap of diamond exploration, for example, in the Yilgarn, people looking for diamonds between the kimberlite pipes. There's been several phases by big companies like CRAs and Rios, etc., and Western Mining, and those data sets. People are mining those data sets to try and get new opportunities or reassaying new techniques. And these sort of modern techniques that have been developed by some by CSIRO and some by companies, larger companies, maybe from internally themselves, and those data sets maybe after time becoming available to the public, and all of a sudden more eyes looking at it, and people trying different things from different angles. And like I said, if you've got the initial ingredients are that the right rocks, the right rock sequence, they've got the right so faulting and generations of discovery, then all of a sudden you've got a pretty good chance that you're going to find something else. And I think we're just might have scratched the surface. Like I said, we've done the low hanging fruit. We're pushing the limits, and all of a sudden we're starting to reveal a whole treasure trove of other opportunities which before weren't available. But obviously, land access is always going to be the challenge as you get to more populated areas, and we're seeing that as well. So sometimes not the entire Yilgarn is available for us to explore for various other reasons, but that sort of makes the exploration a little bit more challenging, but obviously the rewards are sweeter as well.
Look, I was going to say, what's the news flow, but I think you've covered pretty much that. Is there anything that you want to add to the news floor? You did talk about something, but they're more related to Kulin and Thor. But any news floor that you want to add to it?
Yeah, look at besides Mount Lindsay or the pre-feasibility study, we do continue to drill, and we drilled that first hole, the reward, testing the rare earth target. So looking forward to seeing the results there. Obviously, the labs, everyone's assaying for rare earths now, and look, nobody did it 5 years ago, but turnaround used to be quicker actually, but now it's slower. But look, the second drill rig for Venture is there now. We've got another edgy funded hole to drill, which we'll talk about when we get all the permitting done for that. And we've got many holes to drill at Mount Lindsay. Just to remind people, that Renison mine sequence, where we found, which is an extension of reward, where we've got some rare earths heading down, but I think we've got about 10 or 12 Ks sitting on our patch of land heading towards Renison. So we've got holes to put in there. We've been preparing sites for some time now during winter, which has been challenging. But now we've got a second rig. We'll start to gobble up those targets. And like I said, we've got those other targets at Mount Lindsay for other commodities. And also that Southeast Creek was an extension of the number 2 skarn at Mount Lindsay. We hit some pyrrhotite skarn, which looks like we're right next to cassiterite or tinridge skarn. So we know the vector very well. So as a consequence, I think we need to put some more holes in there for a couple of reasons. One is the decline's going to be going past it quite closely. So if we can add significant more tonnage to the underground reserves that we're hoping to put out in the pre-phase, then that becomes a priority target as well. So I'm very keen to put some more holes into that. So Mount Lindsay's got an exploration story still to be had, and when you've got one drill rig, some shareholders, we have mentioned the quarterly, haven't noted, it's 5 days a week, single shift. It's like, I won't say it's akin to watching grass grow. It is, one hole a month. It's quite slow. Then you've got to assay, put in a lab, and that does come with challenges. But when you're putting in the first hole in a sequence that long and putting a hole every 200 or 300 meters, you're just trying to get that vector and about where possibly the next best place to put a hole. And we could be, like I said, a lot of people, it could be a drill hole away from another discovery on several fronts. So whether we're drilling there and then obviously what Golden Grove North, the other opportunity for us putting a drill rig on that as well. So it's a lot to digest for shareholders and lots of opportunity. Venture's always been a bit diversified play, and we've done that to survive, and we saw the benefits and the fruit of that. We had a market cap of $200 million in the end of June last year. So we still have the ingredients to make that happen again.
To close off, I guess, what's the whole question of, why venture? I mean, you guys have had a volatile journey for the last 12 to 18 months. Going forward, obviously, you've got all these things you want to do. So how do you want investors out there to see the venture? Because you've got the rare earths play, and you've got the upside of the tin and tungsten that's in Mount Lindsay, I should say. So how do you want people to see what venture is going forward?
It is a critical minerals is our focus with Mount Lindsay, and rare earths does dovetail to that quite nicely. So that's the opportunity. We are looking to be the next tin producer in Australia. We all know that we need tin. That's everything's electronic. We need 0.7 of a gram sitting in your iPhone null there. Without it, it doesn't work. It's as simple as that. And I don't think people realise that. So if you investors want to be able to be exposed to that, I'm going to on a critical minerals delegation with Austrade at the back end of that London Mines and Money at the that's the beginning of next week. So it's just a few days away. Get onto that, and I think the Europeans understand that. The North Americans understand the need for that, and I think that's a card that has to be played out, which I think people we probably don't realise it at the moment. And if in the meantime we come up with a rare earth discovery or another tin discovery, or then that's just an added bonus for shareholders, and that's the optionality for everyone's there to be seen. I know a lot of people talk about the iron ore price, and again, that we have a free option in the iron ore price. And when China comes out of its COVID lockdowns, and if people are talking about March, then that's what it is. Then we're well positioned on several fronts, and that market cap we had before can be achieved again. And that share the AGM we just had the other day, one shareholder telling me $2 or $3 a share, which if we can achieve that, I'd be ecstatic. But at the end of the day, we are. I suppose he's there because it's a very unique opportunity what we have, and not I don't think there's anyone else listed on the stock exchange that has that, and as a consequence, everything comes together. Chalice make a discovery down at the Julamar lookalike down at on the Southwest project, then maybe one day we'll split companies into East and West. Who knows? We'll watch this space.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think people should remember, this lithium price was dead as a doornail before COVID, and it powered on after that, and then it fell off its rails again and powered on again. So I think the critical metal story has just begun, and I think it's a long road going forward. I think is my point. Look, Andrew, I know it's you've had had to deal with jet lag to get yourself onto Coffee with Samso. Really appreciate that. We would have given you a couple of packets of coffee, but it's a bit hard to throw it through my laptop and send it to you. But I'll keep that in store for you. That's courtesy of Florence Drummond. But look, Andrew, thank you for your time, and good luck for your trade next week. And we'll hopefully hear more coming down the road.
Thank you, Noel, and I look forward to a much better coffee than I had this morning.
All right, thanks. Talk to you again.
Okay. Cheers, mate. Thank you. All the best.